In 1901, sponge divers working off the Greek island of Antikythera pulled a corroded bronze mechanism from an ancient Roman shipwreck. When researchers finally examined it decades later using X-ray technology, they discovered something that shouldn't exist. Inside the encrusted artifact were at least 30 precision bronze gears, arranged in a complex system that calculated astronomical positions, predicted eclipses, and tracked the Olympic Games cycle. The device dates to around 100 BC. Level miniaturization and mechanical sophistication wouldn't appear again in human technology until medieval cathedral clocks appeared more than 1,000 years later. The Antikythera mechanism represents knowledge that was somehow achieved, then completely lost, and it's not alone. Across the world, discoveries keep emerging that don't fit the timeline we've been taught. Objects that require technologies we don't think existed. Structures built with precision we can't explain. Knowledge that appeared fully formed then vanished without trace. These aren't fringe theories or misidentified rocks. These are physical artifacts and sites, measured and documented, that professional archaeologists can't adequately explain using the standard narrative of human technological progression. In 1992, a local farmer in Zhejiang province, China, decided to drain a pond that had existed in his village for as long as anyone could remember. When the water was pumped out, it revealed a stone staircase descending into the earth. That staircase led to a massive underground cavern, entirely artificial, carved from solid siltstone. As the discovery was reported and investigated, researchers found that this wasn't a single cave. It was one of 24 enormous chambers spread across an area of nearly 30,000 square meters, all carved from bedrock, some with ceilings 30 meters high, supported by regularly spaced pillars left intact from the original stone. The Longyu caves show evidence of systematic planning and execution. The walls bear millions of chisel marks, all parallel, all at consistent angles, suggesting standardized tools and methods. The chambers feature carved details, decorative patterns, and even stonefish and birds on the walls and pillars. But here's what makes no sense. There is no historical record of their construction. Not a single Chinese text, and China kept meticulous records going back thousands of years, mentions the excavation of these caves. No one knows who built them, when, or why. The volume of stone that would have been removed exceeds 1 million cubic meters. That material has never been found. There are no spoil piles, no evidence of where that excavated rock went. The caves were simply built, then apparently forgotten so completely that they became legend, dismissed as myth until a farmer drained a pond. 9,000 miles away on a mountain plateau overlooking the city of Cusco in Peru sits a wall that shouldn't be possible. The Sacsayhuamán fortress complex features stones that weigh up to 200 tons, fitted together with such precision that you cannot slide a piece of paper between them. These aren't rectangular blocks stacked in neat rows. These are massive polygonal stones, each one irregular in shape, each one fitted perfectly against its neighbors in 3 dimensions. The surfaces are curved and angled, meaning each stone required custom shaping to match the stones around it. Spanish conquistadors who saw these walls in the 1500s refused to believe humans built them, attributing the construction to demons or giants. Modern engineers have tried to explain how the Inca, working with bronze and stone tools, could have quarried, transported, shaped, and placed these enormous stones. The standard explanation involves wooden rollers, earthen ramps, and patient grinding with rocks and sand to achieve the fit. But when researchers actually tried to replicate even a small section using these proposed methods, they found the tolerance is impossible to achieve. The edges of Sacsayhuamán stones don't just touch, they interlock in complex 3-dimensional patterns, fitted so tightly that even with modern laser measuring equipment, the precision remains difficult to match. Some of the stones were quarried from sites over 20 miles away. No one has demonstrated a convincing method for moving a 200-ton stone over that distance and then fitting it with millimeter precision into a wall of equally massive irregular polygons, all without mortar, metal tools, or the wheel. The timeline of human civilization follows a familiar story in textbooks. Hunter-gatherers roamed for hundreds of thousands of years. Then, around 10 BC, in the Fertile Crescent, agriculture emerged. Permanent settlements followed, complex societies developed, monumental architecture came later, as populations grew and organizational capacity increased. That's the sequence. Except in southeastern Turkey, on a hilltop called Göbekli Tepe, that entire sequence is reversed. Göbekli Tepe was built 11,600 years ago, making it approximately 6,000 years older than Stonehenge and the Egyptian pyramids. The site consists of massive circular enclosures, each surrounded by precisely carved T-shaped limestone pillars that weigh up to 16 tons. The pillars are decorated with intricate carvings of animals. Lions, foxes, scorpions, vultures, snakes, all rendered in detailed relief. The construction required quarrying, transporting, carving, and erecting these monoliths, then arranging them in geometrically planned circles. The site shows evidence of astronomical alignments. When archaeologists excavated Göbekli Tepe, they found no evidence of habitation. No houses, no trash pits, no signs anyone lived there. It was a purely ceremonial center built at a scale and with a level of sophistication that required organized labor, planning, and specialized skills. The problem is that the people who built it were supposedly nomadic hunter-gatherers. There's no evidence of agriculture at Göbekli Tepe's earliest levels, no evidence of a settled civilization with the surplus food and hierarchical organization that such monumental projects are supposed to require. The site simply appears fully realized, carved and erected by people who weren't supposed to have the social structure or technological knowledge to accomplish it. Then, around 8000 BC, the entire complex was deliberately buried under thousands of tons of filled dirt. Someone went to enormous effort to cover it completely, preserving it until excavations began in the 1990s. No one knows why. In 1936, workers digging near Baghdad unearthed a collection of small clay jars dating to around 250 BC during the Parthian Empire. The jars were unremarkable except for one detail. Inside each jar was a copper cylinder, and inside each copper cylinder was an oxidized iron rod. The iron rod was held in place by an asphalt stopper and didn't touch the copper cylinder. When archaeologists analyzed the design, they realized these jars matched the structure of a galvanic cell, essentially an ancient battery. Experiments with replicas showed that when filled with an acidic liquid like vinegar or wine, these devices produce a measurable electrical current, about 1 to 2 volts. The Baghdad batteries, as they became known, present a straightforward problem. Humans weren't supposed to understand electrochemistry until Alessandro Volta invented the first battery in 1800. If these evidence of gold-plated objects from the same period has been found, though conventional explanations attribute the plating to other techniques. No texts describe the batteries or their purpose. They simply exist, functional and deliberate in design, representing knowledge that either emerged and disappeared without leaving a written trace, or that we've fundamentally misunderstood. Similar objects have been found in other Mesopotamian sites, suggesting this wasn't an isolated experiment, but a technology in actual use then lost. In the Indus Valley, the ancient city of Mohenjo-daro was one of the largest settlements of its time, home to perhaps 40,000 people around 2500 BC. The city had sophisticated urban planning, grid-patterned streets, advanced drainage systems, standardized brick sizes, multi-story buildings. Then, around 1900 BC, it was abandoned. When archaeologists excavated the site in the 1920s, they found skeletons scattered in the streets and buildings, not buried, just lying where they fell, some in postures suggesting sudden death. In several areas of the city, they found something even stranger. Certain structures at Mohenjo-daro show evidence of vitrification. The bricks and stone had been exposed to heat so intense that the surfaces fused into glass. Vitrification of this type requires temperatures exceeding 1500 degrees Celsius. No evidence of a massive fire has been found that could generate that heat across stone and brick. No volcanic activity occurred in the region. Some researchers have pointed to ancient Indian texts, the Mahabharata and other epics, which describe weapons that generate intense heat and devastation in terms that sound remarkably like descriptions of nuclear or thermal weapons. Mainstream archaeology dismisses these comparisons, attributing the vitrification to conventional fires or kiln accidents, but no satisfactory explanation has been demonstrated for the extent and intensity of the heat evident in the archaeological record. The city was abandoned suddenly, and thousands of years of history offer no clear answer for what happened there. In 1929, a group of historians examining the archives of the Topkapi Palace in Istanbul discovered a map drawn on gazelle skin. The map, created by Ottoman admiral and cartographer Piri Reis in 1513, showed the western coast of Africa, the eastern coast of South America, and something that shouldn't be there, the northern coast of Antarctica. The map was compiled according to Piri Reis's own notes, from older source maps, some dating back to the time of Alexander the Great or earlier. The Antarctic coastline on the map shows geographical features that match the actual coast beneath the ice, as confirmed by modern seismic surveys. The map depicts mountains, bays, and islands in positions consistent with the subglacial terrain. Antarctica has been covered by an ice sheet for at least 6,000 years, possibly much longer. The last time its coastline would have been visible and navigable, allowing for the detailed surveying reflected in the Piri Reis map, was before that ice formed. This implies that either the source maps Piri Reis used were based on surveys conducted before the Ice Age conditions locked the continent in ice, or that someone possessed the ability to map subglacial features long before modern sonar and seismic technology. Conventional explanations suggest the map shows a misidentified portion of South America's coast, but researchers who have compared the map's details to the actual subglacial coastline of Antarctica find the correlations difficult to dismiss. If the map is accurate, it indicates cartographic knowledge from a time period when such knowledge isn't supposed to exist. Off the coast of the island of Pohnpei in Micronesia, a series of 92 artificial islands sits in a lagoon, constructed from massive basalt columns and boulders. This is Nans Madol, a ceremonial and political center built between 1200 and 1500 AD. The islands are connected by a network of canals, giving the site the nickname Venice of the Pacific. The structures are made from columnar basalt, hexagonal stones that look almost manufactured in their geometric regularity, though they're natural formations. Some of these stones weigh up to 50 tons. The entire complex is estimated to contain around 750,000 metric tons of black rock. Here's the problem. There is no source of basalt on Pompeii itself. The stones had to be transported from quarries on the opposite side of the island or from other islands entirely, then floated or carried across the reef and lagoon to the construction site. The builders, the Saudelor dynasty, left no written records of the construction techniques. Local legend says the stones were flown into place using magic, which is dismissed by archaeologists, but no alternative explanation has been demonstrated that accounts for the transportation and placement of such massive stones using the technology available to a Micronesian society in the medieval period. Nan Madol was eventually abandoned, and the jungle began reclaiming the site. Even now, much of it remains unexcavated, its original purpose and construction methods still unclear. In the Denisova cave in Siberia, archaeologists in the 1990s found bone fragments from a previously unknown hominin species, later named Denisovans after the cave. Among the remains, in a layer dated to around 40,000 years ago, they found a bracelet made of polished dark green chlorate stone. When researchers examined the bracelet under microscopic analysis, they found something that contradicted everything understood about Stone Age capabilities. The bracelet had been shaped and polished to a smooth finish, but more significantly, it featured a precisely drilled hole. The hole was too perfect. Analysis showed that to drill a hole of that diameter and smoothness into chlorite, a material with hardness comparable to jade, would require a drill bit rotating at speeds exceeding 10,000 rotations per minute, with steady pressure and likely some form of lubricant or coolant. Modern jewelers use high-speed rotary tools with diamond bits to achieve that kind of precision in hard stone. The Denisovans living 40 years and years ago were supposed to be working with hand tools, bone and stone. No mechanism has been proposed that could generate the rotational speed necessary to produce the drill hole found in the bracelet. The object exists. It's been measured, analyzed, and dated, but the technology required to create it doesn't fit into the timeline of human tool development. It suggests either a sophistication in Stone Age craftsmanship that we've entirely underestimated, or the existence of techniques and tools that left no other trace in the archaeological record. Beneath the waters off the coast of Yonaguni Island in Japan lies a massive underwater structure that has sparked decades of debate. Discovered in 1987 by a dive tour operator, the Yonaguni monument features flat terraces, right-angle corners, pillars, and what appear to be carved steps and roads. The main formation is approximately 150 meters long and 27 meters high, composed of sandstone and mudstone. Some researchers, most notably marine geologist Masaki Kimura, argue that the structure shows clear evidence of human modification, tool marks, geometric angles too precise to be natural erosion, and formations that resemble stairs, walls, and even what could be carved animal figures. Other geologists argue that the monument is entirely natural, a product of tectonic activity and erosion along natural bedding planes in the rock. The debate hinges on whether the right angles and flat surfaces are too regular to be explained by geology alone. If the structure is artificial, it would have been built when the area was above sea level, which means before the end of the last ice age, approximately 10,000 years ago or earlier. That would make it among the oldest large-scale constructions in the world, predating the pyramids by thousands of years, created by a civilization with no other known archaeological footprint. Surveys of the site continue, but no consensus has been reached. The monument remains underwater, ambiguous, challenging the assumption that we've identified all the ancient civilizations capable of monumental architecture. What connects these discoveries isn't their location or their age, but the consistent pattern they reveal. In each case, physical evidence exists that pushes against the established narrative of steady linear technological progression. These aren't myths or legends. They're objects you can measure, sites you can excavate, artifacts that sit in museums or lie beneath the earth and ocean waiting. They represent capabilities that appeared, were used, and then vanished, sometimes leaving no written record, no explanation, and no clear successor. The timeline of history we teach is based on the evidence we've found and interpreted, but that evidence is incomplete. Estimates suggest we've excavated less than 1% of known archaeological sites. Texts remain untranslated, tombs remain sealed, and entire landscapes, revealed only recently through LiDAR and satellite imaging, show ancient structures still swallowed by jungle and sand. What we call ancient history is only the fragment that survived long enough and happened to be discovered, documented, and accepted into the narrative. The rest, the vast majority, is still out there beneath our feet and beneath the water, holding answers to questions we're only beginning to know how to ask. The 9 discoveries here aren't anomalies. They might be the norm, glimpses of a depth of human history far stranger and more capable than we've been willing to recognize.